Ladies and gentlemen, you're tuned into voiceamerica.com/live events. We're coming to you live from the 42nd National Hard Money Conference, Pitbull of Hard Money, with the most interesting man in hard money, Leonard Rosen, putting on a great event here in Scottsdale, Arizona, winding towards the end of the day here. And we have our next guest up from VIP Financial Education, Mr. Matthew Pillmore. Matthew, welcome.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I'm glad to be here. First event for me, for Pitbull.
That's awesome. So, we're breaking right into my first question already is, as a first-time attendee of Pitbull, what are your overall thoughts so far?
First impression is almost all positive. I mean, it's a great demographic. Everybody here is successful, accomplished, professional, ready to succeed, and take things to a whole nother level. So we couldn't be happier so far. I'm excited for the next two. I'm already signed up for the rest of the year. So.
Oh, perfect. Well, we'll probably be seeing you at those events. Like I was telling you off air, we've done 5 consecutive Pitbull events over the last couple of years. It's been an exciting adventure for us to, break into kind of a different aspect of the business community with private lending and some of those things that, our traditional Voice America shows are not covering. So, being able to get out there and network with the professionals in the industry and really, dig in deep and look at the trends and what's going on and learn about it has been extremely fantastic. So we appreciate your time and stopping by and, tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about VIP Financial Education and what you guys do.
I'd be happy to. So VIP Financial Education was created back in 2000. We're headquartered out of Denver, Colorado. However, we work with borrowers all over the country, and we teach a completely different curriculum than what most borrowers have seen when it comes to money and debt and credit and how the banks are earning. And, people leave our classes awestruck from the standpoint of wondering why this has never been taught to them in the past. And so what we're really focusing on is how can we help people optimize their general creditworthiness in order to access exorbitant amounts of mostly unsecured capital. So we focus on these very special types of both business and personal capital accounts, and then we show our students how they can put that money to work in order to really exponentially grow cash flow.
So it's not necessarily your standard person who's like a professional in the whole fix and flip thing. These are your everyday Joes and gals that you guys are kind of restructuring their education as it relates to finance to be able to leverage capital that's available, and then allow them to get into this space with private financing and do some residential maybe fix and flips or some other kind of investments?
I mean, you said it perfectly. Here's what I've found, and it's kind of interesting. Any homeowner would stand to benefit by not just tens of thousands, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in preventable interest costs. When you look at your 30-year loan, it's costing you an absolute fortune, even with record low interest rates. And so when we consider that, sure, Joe and Jane homeowner are perfect candidates for this education. However, what I've learned over the years is the traditional entrepreneur and the traditional investor, whether it be kind of first time and just getting your feet wet or seasoned and large portfolio, they tend to get it a little bit more quickly. So, I encourage everybody to really take a look and see how they might be able to kind of restructure what they've been doing with the banks.
So since you guys are, mainly kind of an educational destination, right?
Absolutely.
And teaching, what kind of seminars or events and things do you guys put on to provide the platform to educate those folks?
Sure. So, we're in 1 to 3 cities a week, but we are a relatively small firm, and we choose to keep it that way. So, the majority of our audience comes from online, and the best location or destination for the growing curriculum that we're constantly pushing out is YouTube. Our YouTube channel can be found at VIP Financial Ed, all one word, VIP Financial Ed, and we just welcome anybody to come and see. We're normally putting out anywhere between 1 to 3 new videos every week on that channel. So,
awesome. So you guys are really, leveraging content to get your message out there. And, I know we were talking offline a little bit about that, some synergies that, we have at Voice America with your guys' approach on the content marketing strategy and, really leveraging the creation of content to, inform and educate people, which is, the main reason why Jeff Swinnard, our CEO, created Voice America in the first place was, we were, or he was kind of stuck, right, with the traditional radio model with your broadcast tower and that radius that you can only hit from a certain area. And he, said there's got to be a better way to bring educational and informative talk radio to people in a manner that we can go global. And that was the idea behind what launched Voice America back in 1999 and kind of paved the way for us to be where we're at now. So it's really cool to see that there's, other people's in different verticals that are kind of leveraging the same ideas that Voice America has to really get their name out there.
No question. I mean, the key is just breaking down geographical barriers, and I think that's huge. We get people internationally commenting, reaching out for various guidance every single week. And we're not a huge channel either. We're roughly 1 million views and maybe 10,000 subscribers as of today. But it's growing, and it's growing quickly. And I think that the key is really just giving people as much as possible.
Right.
Don't hold back. Don't dangle carrots. Just truly be there to be, somebody that wants to influence and empower. And, you talk about it great when you're dealing with education. The key here is just giving people a platform to start with.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that they're not still going to need your help. And I think a lot of business owners fear that by giving too much, they're
afraid that
I'm
teaching them that all the things that they need to do to go do it on their own rather than coming to us. But it's all about being forthright with the information. And it's like, look, if you do your due diligence, the information I'm giving you is already out there anyway. So why not get it from me? So then when you do have questions about it and you want to move, maybe to a little bit more advanced, feature set or something like that, you call me for that because that's what we do.
That's right.
Right.
Well, it's fun because our topic is one of those unique conversation points where you can never run out of content. We're dealing with optimizing cash flow. And there are two specific ways of doing that. You make more money and you spend less money. And within that, there are infinite subtopics. And I love that. I mean, let me give you one really cool example before we move on. But I'm out at lunch today at the event. And a guy sitting across the table from us, a guy I know well, Charlie, he's talking about this strategy he uses to purchase his clothing. And you and I were talking about suits earlier. And he said, you go into your suits or you go into your shirts or your pants and you look at the tag and you type in the actual purchase code in there in Google. And it'll pull up the actual manufacturer where people like Joseph A. Banks
has their stuff created.
Right. And so he's buying all of his Joseph A. Banks shirts for $17 direct off of Google. He knows the fit already, just like you do with your suits.
Yeah.
And he's getting $180 dress shirts for $17. Listen, that to me is a cash flow optimization strategy.
Well, exactly. You want to limit your output, right? Got to limit the output.
That's right, baby. Spend less. Spend less. But listen,
Winston, our executive producer, him and I have these conversations all the time. We love suits and we love all that stuff. And, it's always like, where can I find the best suit for the cheapest amount of money to make me look the best without going crazy? Because I'm not going to, it's great if you want to have an Armani suit on and have that tag that costs $1,000. But you know what? I can accomplish the same thing for $100.
That's right.
And keep that other $900 to go out to one hell of a dinner.
Getting the same thing for less. We talk about it all the time. One thing that I've never gravitated towards were these other financial educators like Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman. Listen,
I was going to bring him up too.
They're all about sacrifice. They're all about cutting back. And, I think that when you're dealing with Finance 101, when you're dealing with getting your financial ducks in a row, sure, this is a perfect place to start. But when you're ready to graduate into the big boys club, as Leonard might call it, right? Listen, you got to really start to say, how can I design a lifestyle? Because that's what we're here for. I don't want to give up $6 coffees and travel and helping my community and going out to eat. So at the end of the day, show me how I can spend less and have the same or even better lifestyle.
Yeah, because the whole, you were talking about Dave Ramsey, and I listen to Dave Ramsey because there's a couple of things that he teaches which I appreciate. Like, when you talk about getting out of debt, the debt snowball function is actually a pretty good plan, right?
I can crush it.
Of maximizing it.
We'll
talk about that.
I do like the plan, but I can crush it.
But I'm not going to live on beans and rice, like he says. You know what I mean? I don't want to drive a $3,000 car. I mean, it's great if you have a $3,000 car and all, but I'd like to get to a point point A and B with like my air conditioning working. I live in Phoenix. It's 110 degrees. It doesn't work with a $3,000 car.
I'm telling you. I know. And I agree. I think anyone that's teaching general financial discipline, I'm going to stand behind. But, yeah, our concepts are quite a bit different. So people tend to recognize that right away when they come in and they start sorting through our content. They're very pleased to see that there are better options, and that's something that
So let me give you I'm a radio guy, right? So I listen to radio, talk radio, like all the time, whether it's our own stuff to critique what we're doing or what other people are doing out there in the market. So typical questions that I hear in financial radio shows are like, I have a $15,000 mutual fund. It's not performing very well. What do I do with that? Mm-hmm. What's your answer?
I have no idea. Here's at the end of the day, my specialties are unique. What I am not is an investment advisor. That's right.
Perfect.
What I focus my energy on is cash flow. I care more about cash flow than anything. I believe very, very strongly, and others may not agree, that cash flow is the single most important number to us financially of any. And this, to me, is defined as the difference between all sources of income and all sources of expenses, right? Whatever's left over at the end of the month is what gives you choices. I think cash flow equals choices. And from my experience, very few people show up to one of my classes who doesn't ultimately tell me they're looking for that financial freedom, whatever that means to them. And freedom to me means freedom of choice. I want to be able to choose what I'm doing with my time, even if that means I work until I die. So, cash flow, that discretionary income is critical because, having coached people one-on-one now, thousands of families for the last dozen plus years, people who don't have it just don't have any options. Right. So we have to start to look for how do we make more, how do we spend less. Investing requires a team. I absolutely, the recommendation I would have is surround yourself with very talented people who can help you invest in the right things. That's not me. The other side of the equation is
because the stock market is tricky. To understand bear and all those different terms. It's like for your average Joe and Jane homeowner, they don't know anything about that.
Neither do I.
I don't either.
My preference is real estate and businesses. I can understand both of those two things. Regardless, even in spite of having many opinions on both of those two things, my real expertise and specialty and what people pay us for is to help them manage their debt. How do we take 30-year mortgages and say, you know what, I'm not actually excited about paying almost what I borrow in interest with these extraordinary rates. We walk around bragging about our rates. What I feel we've been misled into thinking is that interest rates are more important than they are. Now, my theory is that what we care most about is total interest costs. How much in actual dollars and cents are we going to pay? Forget about your 4%. And so when people start to think about it from that perspective, you got to understand there are two different sides of the equation. We've got the rate and then the term. If I can take a loan and pay it off, a 12% loan in 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you pay very little interest.
Right.
So what we're doing is compressing both simple amortization schedules and compound interest in order to pay things off
and I think
very fast.
And it's extremely important, like you said, to manage your debt because if you have the ability to keep that debt on the low side, then you do have some financial choices because a lot of people, they get wrapped up in that term and that rate just for the simple fact that they know that their budget only allows them $1,000 a month for a mortgage, and the only way to get $1,000 a month mortgage is to find that lowest interest rate, the longest term, whatever the case might be.
That's right.
But if you can not be in debt and you can say, you know what, I don't need A, B, C, and D. Like my house, I cut out cable. I'm like, I don't need cable, right? I got an antenna. I can watch TV there. I did the math on what we were spending on a yearly basis, and I'm going, well, if I could take that amount of money on that portion, just cut back a little bit on something that's really not necessary, leverage that, get myself into a shorter term loan, have more capital to put into that, pay my house off faster, get into equity faster, I put myself in a cash flow positive scenario much quicker. Right?
No doubt. And what it's doing is actually giving you so much more buying power, investing power. It's giving you so much better banking or borrowing strength. So you're actually, when you're walking into the bank, allowing yourself the opportunity to leverage more.
Right.
So here's where it gets a little tricky. I love leverage, but I hate debt. So obviously I'm picking a fight with myself here, right? But at the end of the day, I believe...
Do you argue with yourself in the mirror?
Well, I have to when it comes to this subject. Here's the thing, and we mentioned this briefly before our conversation on air today, in that we have this also miseducation floating around where there is something dubbed good debt. And you talk with people about this concept, and they fairly easily define it as, consumer-related debts, credit cards, and maybe even auto loans are the bad debts.
Right.
Things like mortgages or even leveraging into income-producing assets is considered good debt.
Right, because there's a liquid asset, right?
That's exactly right, and you'll hear it all the time. Real estate investors, as an example, will say, well, my tenants are paying my mortgage. My argument is this. No, they're not. Your tenants are never pulling out a checkbook and writing a check to your bank and saying, for Ryan's mortgage.
Right.
They're paying you. You're paying your mortgage. What happens if that mortgage was gone tomorrow, free and clear? You own the house. It's your asset.
You're cash flowing.
That's right. And who's keeping that check? You are. So instead of it passing through your bank and going to your mortgage servicer, the money stays with you. And I think that concept begins to resonate with people. And so I encourage people to look at it a little different way. My recommendation is to start considering leverage a necessary evil. I think it is the single most important ingredient to wealth creation. I think without it, you're missing the boat. You're never going to get as far as somebody who is properly leveraging. But if the banks have it their way, how long would you and I stay in debt?
Forever.
That's right. So if you know that the banks want that to happen and you're a believer that they're not building their rules for you, then we can easily agree that, hey, maybe it makes sense to consider a compression of that timeline. And so one thing I wanted to dovetail on your cable bill there, if you're spending $1,200 a year on that thing, and that goes to your mortgage, just one extra payment of mortgage payments a year will eliminate almost 6-7 years of your total term.
And for a homeowner, too, it's got to feel really good to be able to know that, if you make 12 payments, we talked about this before, and it's like, one of the payments, it's $112 or whatever is actually going to your principal. And knowing that you can put that other $1,200 into straight to the principal to get yourself faster. And I actually did on a spreadsheet an amortization over time of, what would that look like if you were to make 13 or 14 payments a year, and it took the 30-year loan and made it payable in like 20 years, right? Which was cool, but still to me not 20. We're going to talk after this because I got some stuff maybe you can help me out with on a personal term and kind of look at that. But this is exactly the kind of stuff that we're talking about on Voice America, and really wanting to educate, inspire people to kind of think outside the traditional box and learn something a little bit different than what they've been kind of been predisposed to over time, what their parents taught them, because that old way of thinking and that old mentality of the 4-letter word of bank, right, just really isn't necessarily the way to get the cash flow pieces. And being able to leverage a great credit score with some liquid income and really build that into some leverage is something we're looking at, right?
Absolutely. And we can take that same 30-year loan, and the average student that practices what we teach, they can knock that out entirely in 3 to 10 years would be our most typical term. Closer to 5 right down the middle. So, you look at saving 25 years on a mortgage, and then
that could be $100,000 or more
easily. It's rare when we don't save at least $100,000 in interest. Take your property, knock the price tag down by $100,000. If I could walk down the street and say, would you buy that if it were $100,000 under market? Would you buy that if it were $100,000 under market? Would you buy that? There wouldn't be a property.
All of them.
That's right. And yet everybody seems to overlook that this can happen through the back door. So again, VIP Financial Ed on YouTube. You can see a lot of the math we just like to uncover and strip away. Forget about the concepts. I mean, this is fun to chit-chat about.
Absolutely.
But you know what? Let's talk 2 + 2 because that's what really works.
Well, you know what? You guys hear it right here on Voice America. Go check out VIPFinancialEducation.com. Of course, they're on YouTube as well, VIP Financial Ed. And then, of course, you guys can always email Matt for some more information on how to get signed up with VIP Financial Education. Matt at VIPFinancialEducation.com. Matt, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and bringing us into the world of the different side of the box and learning a little bit about that. We appreciate it. Guys, we're right here at the 42nd National Hard Money Conference. We're with Matt Pillmore from VIP Financial Education, learning something new today. Guys, check us out on demand. We'll have all the content available for podcast on Google Play, iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, and, of course, the Voice America mobile application. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll bring you some more in-depth interviews and insights from Pitbull Conference right here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Stay tuned.